Hello, world, and watch out because the Passel is pushing on through. We're coming on up. So, what's up, possums? It's Josh and Billy today, or Joe and Billy today. My name is Joe. Sorry, I went to Six Flags today with my godson, and I rode a bunch of roller coasters, and I do not handle roller coasters the same way as I used to. My stomach got all mixed up. My head went to scrambled eggs. I think it reignited every concussion / hangover I have had in my life. So, I'm feeling a little rough today. Billy's going to keep me on track, but guys, thanks, man. It's 2 months to the season, and I know the possums are paying attention because you're listening to this pod right now. But if you happen to come across this show and you're not really paying that much attention to fantasy football right now, it's time to knock the cobwebs off that thing and get back into it, because this is fantasy season and we're going into our drafts fucking prepared. You're not going into your draft unless you're prepared, and it is our job to do that. So today we had a little bit of a change of plans. We were doing the NFC East. We are now doing the NFC South because Josh could not join us, and he is our resident Eagles fan. So we might just make him do that pod on his own, because I'm sure you guys want 2 hours of Eagle content, but we're bringing the NFC South today.
What we could have done is we could have just recorded our part now and then had him come in at a later time whenever he has an hour or two free, and just spill all of his thoughts on every level of the Eagles organization and how they should act going into this upcoming season. Could have just done that. I mean, what do we need to be there for, you know? Not like he's going to let us talk anyway.
Definitely not about the Eagles, but.
No, and every time we try to say something about the roster, he's like, wait, and it's like, oh, God, okay, whatever.
We got about it then. Fifth string safety on the practice squad. Watch out. He's going to be an IDP stud.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Joe, I would like to congratulate you. Me and Josh already got into the Scott Fish Bowl, but you today yourself got into the Scott Fish Bowl. Do you have any words of acceptance that you'd like to get out on the pod?
I'm excited, man. Getting into the industry and everything, I always heard of Scott Fish Bowl. I wanted to be in it. I saw everyone wearing the shirts, wanted to be a part of it. And I'm so excited to compete with everybody and do it for a good cause, get the dollars to the people that actually need them, which do some good in the world. That's what we're all here for. So I'm excited. And I think I manifested it because I ordered a Scott Fish Bowl Caddyshack shirt before I was even in it. And I was like, man, if I don't get in this, I am going to look like a jackass wearing this shirt. And I got in it. So now I can wear the shirt proudly at the Expo.
What division did you get into? I missed it.
Dr. Evil. The Austin Powers one.
That's fair. I'm in the dodgeball division. So I love that movie. So
it was between the champ from Anchorman, whatever his last name was, the whammy guy, and Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. And I was like, I got to go Dr. Evil. Loved Austin Powers growing up. So
it's a good choice. All right. Well, before we get into actual football, I have, off the field stuff I want to talk about. Joe, have you ever heard of raw dogging a flight?
I have not. And I'm very excited to hear about this.
Okay. Everyone out there, before you turn off because you think we're going to talk about something dirty, I guarantee you there is nothing sexual about this at all. So don't have to skip past this part or anything if you don't want to. If you want to, the football starts in about 5 minutes. But if you want to hear what this means, stick with me. So raw dogging a flight, Joe, is a trend amongst mostly men, because women aren't dumb enough to do stuff like this, but amongst men who get onto planes and see how long they can go in a flight without a phone, without a book, without a bathroom break, without getting water from the stewardess, nothing at all. All they look at is the flight tracker on the back of the seat, if there's like the little window that shows you that. But you can't do any form of entertainment, and you can't consume anything, like no peanuts, nothing that you brought on the plane, no water, and you can't use the bathroom. Joe, how you are a flyer, a frequent flyer. Why would you do this? A, B, could you do this?
I'm guessing you can't sleep.
I don't know. That technically wasn't in there, but it's stuff that means no fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't sleep on an airplane anyway, so that's silly. Yeah, I would do it. A lot of times on flights, I find myself just doing nothing. I try to use it. when I'm on these trips and stuff, I meet with a ton of people in very rapid succession, and I'm constantly moving. So I kind of almost meditate. It's almost like a meditative practice for these flights. Add to it that I've had some really sketchy flight happenings in the past couple of years. So I'm more or less just praying for my life as I'm going through flights these days. And I don't really pay too much attention to my phone or anything. I never go to the bathroom. I keep that seatbelt buckled. And I don't know. I just find airplanes to be gross in general. So I'm not trying to eat on them either. So I could raw dog flights.
Wow, Joe, like to find out that you have pretty much already been doing this anyway. People on social media have been flexing like the flight time, basically, of how long their flight is and how far it is, and then saying like, yeah, I just raw dogged this whole flight. I personally could not do it. Some of them I've seen on there were like 20-hour flights, and I just can't even imagine. Not doing anything but looking at the flight tracker on the back of the seat in front of me and just doing nothing else. I cannot think about that.
Yeah, that's rough. We're going to Italy in September, so I could try this, but we're actually flying business class, and I am watching TV the whole time.
Yeah. That's fair. Honestly, Joe, there's no way. I went to China a few years ago, and there's no way I could have done that at all. There's just no way. I'd have lost my mind. But some people, I guess, it's a new challenge for, like I said, mostly men, because, like I said, women are not dumb enough to do stuff like this and think it's cool. It's mainly a man thing, I feel like, to see how long you can do something like this.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, when you think about flying, I'm always, nothing in my pockets, don't care about anything, just get to the destination. Julianne's got her travel pillow, her blanket, her book, her headphones. She's all geared up for the flight. And, she looks so comfortable sitting there. And like halfway through the flight, I'm like, damn, I think I should have done something like that, but I am too big of an idiot to do so. So I guess, yeah, in theory, I've been raw dogging flights for a while.
That's crazy. I always like download a movie or download like a season of TV or something. Just bang out something, like, especially if it's a movie I've never seen before, the perfect time for me to watch a movie that I've been meaning to watch, but, because I don't have anything else to do. So it's like, all right, I'll watch. I watched Moneyball on the way to Mexico one time because I'm like, I've never seen Moneyball. I've never seen the movie. So I was like, oh, this is the time. Great movie.
Great chance to get caught up. Yeah, I don't know, man. Most of the traveling I do now, I stare out the window because if I can see what I'm looking at, see what we're flying over, I'm a little bit calmer in the plane. I don't know. It's this weird fear that I have established as I get older.
That's fair enough. I'm going to assume
aborted landings and horrible turbulence will do it to you. So,
yeah. Well, and you fly a lot, so like I could see, for those of us that like don't fly, but maybe once a year or once every 2 years, or maybe not even at all, maybe just taking one flight in your lifetime, probably going to have something to do. But you do it every week, so I can see why you probably would not maybe have something ready to go every time. You just business as usual.
Just meditate my way through it, man.
That's probably smart. Okay, well, let's get on to something. This is like raw dogging through this podcast because the NFC South is so boring that, I mean, we might as well not be on our phones, not be on our computers, not going to the bathroom, nothing, because this division, Joe, I just don't love it. Getting into it before I start, I just don't love any team in this division. I know it's going to be interesting at times, but there's 3 of these 4 teams I'm not interested in at all, and then the 4th team, kinda. So with that being said, let's start with the worst team in this division by far, and that is the Carolina Panthers, Joe.
The Carolina Panthers were so bad last year that they finished dead last and gave the Chicago Bears the 101, which they used for Caleb Williams, which I am absolutely sure that Panthers fans would have rather had Caleb Williams than what we saw out of Bryce Young last year. But really, when we look at this team in 2024, it all starts with Bryce Young. He was the first overall pick, had a really tough go at it last year. He was sacked 62 times last year, second most in the NFL, averaged 180 passing yards per game, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It's not great. It's not great, Bob. So what do? They go out and they bring in Dave Canales. He comes over after freshly reviving Baker Mayfield's career and then Geno Smith's career the year before that. So he's kind of the QB whisperer. And then they went out and upgraded the line. They signed Robert Hunt to an insane deal. Damian Lewis comes over from Seattle, and, we hope Iquanu, I can never say his name, bounces back in his third season. So the line should be better. And then they bring in Deontay Johnson. They draft Xavier Legette, JT Sanders, and Jonathan Brooks. So Bryce Young got a lot of help. So, honestly, Bill, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I think Bryce Young could be considered a dark horse for comeback player of the year. I'm not expecting phenomenal things here, but he has way more going for him this year. And at QB 25, it's really not the worst price to take a shot at him. If you grab Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, you're not taking a quarterback for a long time. Bryce Young's a great guy to grab late and just see what happens. Because if he turns out to be halfway decent, it's a great trade candidate on there. So I like Bryce Young. I'm not going way out of my way to draft him, but that's pretty much probably the only way I would have Bryce Young on my team is if I went quarterback early. I would take him late for his upside. Then we get Jonathan Brooks. Listen, he tore his ACL in November, so we're 7 months removed from that. We have 2 months of the season. It's going to be right at 9 months into his recovery by the time the season kicks off. His price has been skyrocketing the past few months. He's RB22 now. Now, I had him and Jalen Wright. They were kind of my top-tier running backs in this draft class. I love Jonathan Brooks. But why in the hell would a team that finished dead last in 2023 rush back an injured rookie who they drafted in the second round to throw him into the fire to lead this team to greatness? It makes absolutely no sense. You have Miles Sanders here, who is the 12th highest paid running back in the league. You have an upgraded line. Why not run Miles Sanders directly into the ground? And then you have Chuba Hubbard, who looked pretty good last year. He wasn't efficient by any means, but he was all right. And then they bring in Rashad Penny, former first-round pick. So the whole running back room is pretty good. And I think we're looking at a full-blown committee here at best. I think Miles Sanders leads that committee. And at RB80, that's really who I'm looking at to take this over. I'm not expecting great things, but drafting Brooks as your RB22 in a redraft is insane to me. I'm out at that price. Now, if you get him later than that, I think he's a great running back. He's a lot of skills. All in on him on Dynasty, but redraft, absolutely not.
Best ball as well.
Yeah, best ball is a good one too. Now, he could come out mid-season and be a league winner if they start feeding him the ball, but I don't see any reason why they would do that unless they are absolutely winning this division, which I still think they're a year or two away from competing. So just my thoughts on it. So the wide receivers, why do you bring in Deontay Johnson, who was cut from the Steelers for being too immature? And that's Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin kept Antonio Brown on the rails, and he's saying Deontay Johnson, he couldn't stand him anymore. He cut him. Why do you bring a 27-year-old Deontay Johnson to help your young quarterback when he's going to be a diva on the field? Hopefully they can get him in check. I do like Deontay Johnson. A lot of people are saying he's an absolute value right now. If he plays the way he can, he could be a phenomenal value where he's going. He's wide receiver 44 right now. He could catch 7-8 balls a game, be a PPR stud. But we've seen his separation drop down each year. He's a good route runner. He's 27 years old now. He's not as quick as he used to be. So I don't know. I like Deontay Johnson. I just think people are a little too hyped on him at the moment. If he's on your team, if he's your wide receiver 4 or 5, by all means, if he's your wide receiver 3, I would not feel comfortable about that. So you got Adam Thielen still there. He's 48 years old at this point. It's a joke. But he looked pretty good last year. I mean, through week 12, he was a top 10 wide receiver. Defense has kind of figured out, hey, that's the only guy we have to guard, and they kind of shut him down. But Adam Thielen's still a shifty veteran. I mean, he could go 700 yards, 7 touchdowns, catch 65, 75 balls. I mean, kind of right in there. That would be a top 40 wide receiver for you. And he is going as wide receiver 71 at the moment. So I kind of think Thielen's a good value. Again, if he's your wide receiver 3, you're screwed. Right. None of these people on this team should be your top person on the team. So then we get JT Sanders. They think he's going to be the next Greg Olsen. Will he be? I don't know. He looked damn good at Texas. But again, there's a lot on this team that needs to shake out over time here. So Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, probably your top 2 wide receivers. Xavier Legette's going to be your wide receiver 3. Jonathan Mingo is still going to be there. I think Terrace Marshall finally gets cut, which hopefully he can latch on a good team. But I think those first 3 are your wide receivers there. I wouldn't even have too much stock in Xavier Legette this year, but that's just me.
Nope. I wouldn't either.
That's just
me. I think he's just slightly better Mingo, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I love what he can do. I mean, if you put him on a team with an actually established quarterback, I don't know. But then on defense, Derek Brown, he's going to get you a ton of tackles. We know that. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney to a big deal. Probably going to be a 1 or 2 year guy. I don't anticipate with the way this team's built that he's going to give you much value. You got Shaq Thompson, which is the wide receiver 3 of linebackers. He's going to get you some tackles and not a whole lot else. Interestingly, they brought in Josie Jewell, who could provide decent value as like an LB2, LB4, LB3, something in that range. It was where he could finish. I don't expect massive things, but it's pretty good. They way overpaid DJ Wonnum to come in here. Like I said, I'm not too excited about this defense. You know, Xavier Woods, we thought was going to work out last year. He didn't. Jordan Fuller at free safety, pretty good value on him right now. But I'm not overly investing in anyone in this defense. So your Shaq Thompson truthers, you can have him. I'm out.
That's fair enough. I did end up looking up back to your comeback player of the year, Bryce Young thing. He's currently 55-1, which is like 15th, I think, on this list, if I'm counting correctly. I mean, 55-1, I'd probably take at least a flyer on him. The like top ones are Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, and Kirk Cousins. So maybe I would think those could be better. But if Bryce Young gets this team to like 8-9 wins, I don't know. Maybe. I definitely
this division,
think that's a possibility.
He could sneak them into the playoffs in this division if they play some good football. I mean, this division has really the door wide open. Yeah,
but no, you're right. With a new coach, I mean, I do think there's an opportunity there to show something. But I don't know. I'm probably going to be out on all Panthers. I'm not going to lie. I don't want any part of this. A lot of people are seeing this backfield as like an opportunity. We thought that last year, and it wasn't an opportunity then either. So I know there's a new offensive coordinator there. The running game didn't really work in Tampa either. If we're not going to, I know that was a Rachaad White situation maybe, but didn't really work there. So, I mean, I don't know. I think if anything, you're going to take Bryce Young, like you said, after you've taken a quarterback or taken him super late just for the odds of it, maybe turning around, and then maybe Deontay Johnson just because eventually you've got to funnel it to the most talented person on your roster on offense, and that's probably Deontay Johnson at this point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. My only thing with the Sanders was I'm hearing a lot that he might get cut. Why would you cut him? You're paying him a ton of money. He's the 12th highest paid running back. You're going to take all that dead cap to try to rush Jonathan Brooks back? That makes no sense to me. So
I don't know. I again, don't want either of these people. I would have thought they would have tried to trade Sanders by now, honestly, like instead of just cutting him straight up. You're telling me somebody wouldn't have taken Sanders for a 7th round pick during the draft or something? Like, come on. It's not
probably
terrible.
Not with that contract.
Well, maybe not. But like, you could have gotten something for him, and now you're going to have to pay him.
For sure. I'm just not willing to believe that Philly's running was that good that they sustained Miles Sanders to be a very valuable running back, and then 1 year removed, he is trash. Something's going on there. He still has value.
Yeah, I think you could be right about that. All right, the over-under for the Panthers, Joe, is 5.5.
All right, so they have the Saints, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Bears, the Falcons, the Commanders, the Broncos, the Saints, the Giants. They have a Week 11 bye week. Chiefs, Buccaneers, Eagles, Cowboys, Cardinals, Buccaneers, Falcons.
I mean, I'm going under. I think this is a 5-12 team, and I think they'll be right back at the beginning of the draft. I personally don't believe in Bryce Young at all. I think that he's not going to work. I think you're going to need a miracle for him to have a good season. And why in the world would you be, me personally, why in the world would I be banking on a miracle? Like that? That's just not going to work.
No, they downgraded the defense way too much for me to believe in them at all. But, another high pick.
You going over?
Or under, because I want the Bears to have a good second rounder in next year.
You for sure will. Like the thing is, and I don't like. I know that like 1 year does not define a quarterback in their career, but there's just we wondered last offseason before he even played a down how this was going to work with Bryce Young. Like it doesn't make sense. He is not tall enough. He does not really have. He has a mobility factor, but in college he had the mobility factor of like I'm going against an accountant or a lawyer or against a whatever, like another job that's not going to be in the NFL. At the NFL, you're facing all NFL players all the time. Like they're going to snap him like a twig, Joe. Like I just don't see it. I don't see it. And Kyler Murray works when he's short because he's really quick. He's literally Mighty Mouse. He's fast. That's how he gets out of those situations. Bryce Young, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. It's just he's not tall enough, Joe. I hate being that way because I love the short kings, but maybe not a quarterback.
Yeah. I want to believe in Bryce Young, but we were right. I mean, we had Stroud above him last year, pretty much through the whole draft process and everything. And I mean, we just didn't see it, but here we are, praying he does well.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll see what happens. Not like next year's quarterback class is any better to try to upgrade him. So they're going to at least have 2 more years. Like you can't just bail on him. So I don't know. Maybe they can move a little bit closer to something, but I don't love where we're at right now with them. Okay, let's move on to the Buccaneers, who have my favorite college quarterback, Baker Mayfield, on their team. He's going as QB 22 right now, 160 overall. Listen, I think if you're really punting on the quarterback position, grabbing him in one of the last rounds of your draft is not a bad idea. Just in case the person that you get earlier than that gets hurt. He knows how to use his weapons. The offense, while it's not going to be run by the same guy because he now works for the Panthers, I still think is going to be decently dynamic. But I think as a cheap quarterback option, you could do worse than Baker Mayfield. The running backs, you got Rachaad White is RB14 right now, 63 overall, and Bucky Irving is RB54, 172 overall. I'm here to tell you this, folks, and I know Joe probably doesn't want to hear this, but Bucky Irving's coming on this team. He's coming for that spot. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year. I'm not saying that he's going to outrun Rachaad White this year or get like enough touches to make it worth it. But I'm saying like you got Rachaad White in front, and then you have somebody peeking over his shoulder onto that play time, and that's Bucky Irving. So to get him at basically for free at the end of your draft at 17th, 18th round, yes, go grab him because there is a great chance that either Rachaad White needs help by like another running back coming in and being effective, or he's going to just flat out Bucky Irving is just going to come take the job. There is flaws to his game. There's flaws to Rachaad White's game. This is the way they're going to go about their business. Then you're just going to have to accept that they just like flawed running backs, but maybe together as a unit, they can be a solid running back for Baker Mayfield. All right, get on to the wide receivers real quick because there's a lot to talk about here because I think we've got a lot of undervalue going on. Mike Evans at wide receiver 17, 23 overall. Take Mike Evans. Come on. Like, what are we still doing with this? I know that 23 is not like a huge fall, but it's a kind of it's one of those draft picks that it's not sexy. It's not going to get – nobody in the room is going to be like, oh, well, yeah, damn, you got Mike Evans. But you're going to be happy that you made that choice. Like, you're going to be happy that he's on your team, and you're going to get a lot of points from him from the touchdowns alone because Baker loves him. But just the connection they had last season and the offense they ran, I think that part's not ever going to fall off. Now, where we start to get into issues is when we get to Chris Godwin. So, wide receiver 36, 59 overall. I would definitely take Chris Godwin. I do understand the problems with last season and maybe thinking that is what's going to happen again this season. I'm not as worried as I think a lot of people are. Chris Godwin's a good player. He's definitely good for like 7 to 12 points a week, but there's got to be an opportunity for him to get more, and I don't know what that's going to take, but hopefully Baker can work a little bit more to what Chris Godwin's doing, because what happened last year cannot happen again. And then we get to the infamous wide receiver 3 for Baker Mayfield. This man loves a wide receiver 3. Doesn't matter who it is. So our list of suspects are Trey Palmer, who was the wide receiver 3 last year, wide receiver 111, 268 overall. He's a free agent. The new kid on the block, Jalen McMillan from Washington, wide receiver 82, 119 overall, or 191 overall, which basically free. And I think we got a little bit of rookie fever going on there, but mind you, he is an upgrade over Trey Palmer in my eyes a little bit. You also got Sterling Shepard and Raheem, even though Joe Buck called him Rockham Jarrett. Both of those guys are going free right now as all. Don't know who you're going to be able to trust as this wide receiver 3. Last year was Trey Palmer, but I could easily see Jalen McMillan fill in that spot. He played the wide receiver 3 position at Washington perfectly. Technically, he was the wide receiver 2 and Polk was the wide receiver 3, but due to injuries and other circumstances, it was kind of a McMillan wide receiver 3, Polk 2. But I wouldn't count out any of these guys. Sterling Shepard is going back to college. They both played at Oklahoma together. Baker advocated for them to sign Sterling Shepard to come onto the team, which, just throws another wrinkle into the plan. And then you got tight end Cade Otton, who's going as tight end 21, 176 overall. I actually like him as probably the third option on this team. Baker loves him down near the end zone. It's either him or Mike Evans that are catching all these touchdowns. If you're a bettor out there, the anytime touchdown for Cade Otton and Mike Evans, one of the two is going to cash every week. You might as well just sprinkle a little bit on each one each week, and you probably will win some money every week just doing that. But what do you think about this wide receiver core, Joe, including Otton? Like, what are you going to do outside of Mike Evans? What are you going to do with this team?
So you saw the one-handed catch video from Cade Otton, I'm guessing. That's what. Yeah, I don't mind Cade Otton. I think he has value, and where he's going, he cannot be your starting tight end. That's where I'm going with Cade Otton. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to break out. He's going to break out. He cannot be your starting tight end. If he does break out, he's got the pathway to do it. I can see it happening. I'm not investing huge in it. He's definitely not going to be my starter. Back to your point about the wide receiver 3, I love Jalen McMillan. He pretty much made Polk his bitch when he was in the lineup. So McMillan, I think, has more talent. We saw Penix really target him in a Dunze, and Polk was kind of regulated to mop-up duty there. So we know he can have an impact on the offense. And that's kind of what they need, is that more of that deep ball guy, that contested catch guy. So I like that a lot. Chris Godwin, when they said they were moving him into the slot pretty much permanently, that was primo for me. I was all backing on Godwin there. He's kind of going to be a really sneaky PPR stud. So try to get him. A lot of people are really down on him, especially after last year. But no, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed all these guys. I'm with it. The one thing I will say about the running backs is I think Bucky Irving is a more complete back than Rachaad White. We knew Rachaad White coming out was a phenomenal pass catcher. Bucky Irving was a pretty damn good pass catcher last year too. And I think he handles rushing duty a little bit better than Rachaad White. So, yeah, I could see him taking that job over. So, watch out.
He's a little shiftier too, Bucky Irving. Also, with what you mentioned about Chris Godwin playing in the slot, that's kind of Jalen McMillan's territory as well. So, everybody drafting Jalen McMillan as their wide receiver 3 on this team, what are you going to do there? Because Chris Godwin literally is already on that corner. So, and that moves Trey Palmer to the outside. But also, again, we have Sterling Shepard, Rockham Jarrett, and then the other people that are on this team that are just further down the list. Defensively, obviously, Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to be a solid addition to any IDP roster. I'm excited to see things from Yaya Diaby this season. I also think Chris Braswell from Alabama has a chance to make a move to maybe get into a position where he can start. I don't know for the fact that it's going to happen, but we'll see. Vita Vea always seems like a good defensive tackle option. I think even he's usable on most IDP rosters. Kalijah Kancey, we'll see what he can do this year. It was good last season, and he had a legitimate claim to like a potential defensive rookie of the year, but it just didn't come together there at the end. And then Levante David, the tried and true. Don't overthink it. He's always good to have on your roster. So overall, the Bucs, pretty good team, Joe.
Yeah, they really are. I do like KJ Britt a lot. I think he could kind of break out in that LB2 role. And then Tyke Smith is like my number one late round rookie draft stash. He was an absolute stud, and I think he could find snaps at safety sooner rather than later.
That's fair. Okay, the over-under for the Buccaneers is 7.5, Joe.
All right, so the Bucs have the Commanders, the Lions, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Falcons, the Saints, the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the 49ers, and a Week 11 bye. And then they have the Giants, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Saints. I think they can do it.
Yeah, I was about 8 or 9, I think. Yeah. No, I believe there's just something about, and I've been saying this forever because he's my favorite player, but there's just something about Baker Mayfield that just makes you believe. It makes the people on the team believe that this is possible. So if they believe, I believe. How about that? I'm not going to say
Michael's
I'm
secret stuff, man.
But if they believe, I believe.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's literally what it feels like. So I guess I'm going over. Come on, 8 and 9. That seems like that's not going to happen. That seems like this is a 9-win team to me. I think that line is off a little bit. I think 1 game off.
I was only seeing like 5 games that were like they're probably going to lose that. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, both going over. Okay, on to the Saints. Joe, how are you feeling about the Saints?
Not good, man. Do we even have to talk about this team?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, Jesus. All right, so Mickey Loomis has made this team very, very strapped for cash with all their insane contracts. So what you're seeing is a team that year after year does not change a whole lot outside of the draft. So Derek Carr is going to be back. It's not good. I mean, Derek Carr is a fine quarterback. If you're in a 2 QB league, he can absolutely be your second quarterback. I'm not going to argue with you about that, but it's not great. And, Michael Thomas isn't there. Not that he played anyway, but this receiving core is just not quite as good as you would want for your number 2 quarterback in a super flex. Better if he's your number 3. So not really feeling Derek Carr. He's, QB 2080 is going behind Bryce Young. So he's a guy you can absolutely wait on. If you want to go for it, you're not going to get too much of a fight for me. Alvin Kamara, second highest paid running back in the league. I don't know if he wants to be the number 1 running back in the league, but there seems to be a little bit of contract dispute going on here. I don't know with his contract how he could even ask for more after what he's been putting on the field, but he's RB17. They have a phenomenal schedule this year. So Alvin Kamara is a value. And if this contract negotiation thing keeps going out there, I'll take that shot all day because we know what Alvin Kamara is. Now, a lot of people are very high on Kendre Miller. I myself am very high on Kendre Miller. I was last year.
Okay. I thought you said people. I thought it was just you.
No. Very high on Kendre Miller. So there's about 100 ways this house of cards of Alvin Kamara situation could unravel here. And we could see Kendre Miller taking over this backfield pretty easily. So draft Kendre Miller. Last pick of your drafts. Probably not last pick. Last couple rounds of your draft, he's not going insanely high right now. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Take a shot on Kendre Miller because if Alvin Kamara gets hurt, it's his job. If Alvin Kamara keeps pissing off the team, it's his job. Whatever Alvin Kamara wants to do, Kendre Miller is waiting in the wings for it. You do have Jamal Williams there who, might poach a couple touchdowns here and there, but not too much. And then we got Chris Olave, who is wide receiver 11. Now, he was the 16th overall wide receiver last year. I don't know why people think that he's going to get better this year. I love the player. I hate the offense. I hate the quarterback. So where Chris Olave is going, Possums, I will be completely out on him right now. Unless something changes. He looked really good with Jameson last year. Jameis Winston came in, looked awesome. Derek Carr came in, looked average. You see where I'm going with this? When Derek Carr is there, Chris Olave's ceiling is lower. So watch out for that. And, you can – I don't know, man. Juwan Johnson had surgery. Foster Moreau's there. Derek Carr is familiar with him. Taysom Hill's there. Everyone gets really hyped up about Taysom Hill. The problem with Taysom Hill, though, is you don't know when you can start Taysom Hill. That's the only problem. So he turns into kind of a roster clogger on your team because you never know when to start him. Dallin Holker looked pretty good during the combine. Kid out of Colorado State. I don't know. Looks pretty solid. You could draft him, especially in Dynasty. And redraft, I'm not touching any of these guys, but that's the offense. On the defense, I mean, Cameron Jordan, Mario Davis, Pete Warner, your normal guys. Tyrann Mathieu, I think he still has a little bit left in the tank. The fascinating thing for IDP is going to be who wins the competition between Jordan Howden and Jonathan Abram. Now, I think it's going to be Jonathan Abram. Jordan Howden got hurt last year. Jonathan Abram came in, looked awesome doing it. I think he retains the job. He is more of the veteran, but Howden wins. So there's value between whoever wins that strong safety job for this team. So keep an eye on that. But overall, I'm not too excited about this team. Sorry, Rougarou. That's what I got.
Yeah, no, you're pretty good about mentioning that. I will say all of those people that have A.T. Perry on their practice squad, it's your time. Your time to dust him off. He might be playable this season. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, this team, I don't know, Joe. I'm a curious part is the Spencer Rattler of it all. A lot of people were saying that Spencer Rattler could come in and play right away. I personally don't believe that, but a lot of people did, especially the people that were, with us doing the draft coverage. And is there a chance we see him this season? Like, is there a chance that, Derek Carr kind of wears out his welcome? They lose 5-6 games and suddenly it's like, well, let's see what we got behind him at quarterback. I know they have Jake Hayner technically above him, but Rattler gets a lot of buzz. So I don't know. Do you think that move might happen at any point in the season?
It could absolutely happen. I mean, Derek Carr is kind of, if you think about famous movies like Office Space, when he says, I do just enough to not get fired. That's kind of what Derek Carr is as a quarterback. I mean, it's just good enough to where it's like, yeah, he's probably our best bet there. But eventually they're going to have to make a decision because Derek Carr is not the future of this team. So do you take the shot on Spencer Rattler? I think you do.
Honestly, I think this team is a strong candidate to be one of the people that goes and gets a quarterback in next year's draft in the first round. There won't be anybody, like we'll get to the over-under here in a second, but I don't think there won't be anybody at the top of the draft, I don't think, based on what draft prep I've done already. I think where they're going to end up in the draft will probably be about the spot where quarterbacks start coming off the board. So this could be a team that could, take a chance on one of those guys. I don't personally believe in Spencer Rattler as much as a lot of people do, and I think if you're presented with a better option, which they're going to have, I don't know why they wouldn't take that. But I don't know. Again, we'll see.
No.
All right, Joe, the Saints over-under is 7.5.
Okay, so they're probably going to win week 1. They got Carolina. And we got Cowboys, Eagles, Falcons, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Broncos, Chargers, Panthers, Falcons, Browns. We have a week 12 bye week. We got the Rams, the Giants, the Commanders, the Packers, the Raiders, and the Buccaneers. I don't think they get there, Bill.
That week 12 bye week, I think, is going to be a crux of this. Is that you said week 12, right? Was the bye?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the time that we're going to be figuring out who's who and what's what, Joe. I think that might be the time that we start looking at who's on our bench, who we got out here, because I think they're going to be 5-7, 4-8 at that point, and not looking good. So I don't know. I'm going under, but they could pull something wacky going into week 13, and I don't know, maybe it changes the season. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. Outside of the 2 Panthers games in the first 11 weeks, that's kind of a murderer's row right there.
But see, like even the Panthers, they were frisky last season. They did, as you mentioned, like shred their defense. But I think those two teams are very similar, Saints and Panthers. They don't really have a great direction. It's the arrow is like pointed up, but like at such a small angle that you can't even really tell that it's pointed up. And I think they're going to be in the same boat. I think they're going to be around the same amount of wins. In fact, I don't know.
I don't know. This team just very uninspiring. And do you remember the Dave Chappelle skit when keeping it real goes wrong?
Yeah.
It's kind of like this is what Mickey Loomis has done. It's like when keeping cap space goes wrong because you can't keep changing all of these salaries to signing bonuses because you're cash rich and then push off all these contracts 10 years into the future because eventually your roster is going to look like this and there ain't shit you can do about it. So the time of reckoning has come. I think the Saints tear it apart and rebuild it.
So what you're saying is the Saints will not go marching in. Is that what you're reporting?
Marching straight into a rebuild. Marching into a repair shop. Yes.
The Saints go marching into a repair shop. That is exactly where they should be. Okay, let's get on to the last team. They're kind of fun, so this will be interesting to talk about. We have the Falcons of the NFC South. They went out and signed Kirk Cousins. Joe, ever heard of him?
I've heard of old
The problem with Kirk Cousins, he's coming off of an Achilles injury, which is a pretty brutal injury to have for any player, and much less starting quarterback on your team. Now, they made a controversial move during the draft, drafting Michael Penix onto their team. Personally, I think we went I didn't, but a lot of people did, went a little overboard with the outrage of the pick. I will admit they were goofy for not trading with the Bears to get that extra 4th rounder. That report came out afterwards that the Bears had offered them to move up. And you knew the Bears weren't going to take Michael Penix as they'd already taken Caleb Williams, and they turned down the trade for the extra 4th rounder. So maybe I don't completely agree with all of the GM's decisions, but I didn't necessarily disagree with the Michael Penix decision. I think the problem with what they did was they took him at a spot where nobody was going to take him. That was kind of the issue, I think, with that actual pick, not necessarily who they took, because they believe in Michael Penix. So I don't disagree with what they did, Joe. I don't disagree, and I will wholeheartedly, before I get into the team, do you, hindsight being what it is now, do you disagree with what they did choosing Michael Penix?
I don't disagree because Kirk Cousins' Achilles injury worries me. It really does. I mean, is he going to be 80% of the quarterback he was? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be 60%? We really don't know. And the re-injury risk for a 36, 37-year-old quarterback's probably pretty good. There's probably a pretty good risk that he also gets injured. So what the Falcons did was they looked at this division and they said, okay, we got the Saints and the Panthers who suck. We've got a Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers team. We got our guy. We got our quarterback. We paid the crap out of him. We're pushing all of our chips in, and we're getting him a solid backup. You're not getting a Michael Penix level backup at this point in the free agency. You'd have to overpay the hell out of one. So sure, you can wait for roster cuts, but who cuts a solid second-string quarterback, third-string quarterback? Nobody. So you got your backup. I know he's going to be old if Kirk Cousins plays his whole contract out, but I don't think that happens. I mean, worst comes to worst, you get 2 years out of Kirk, and then you take it over to Penix and see what he can give you for the future. But this team's built to win. They have a lot of studs on their team. Defense is solid, so why not push all the chips in and go for it?
I agree completely. There was no person that they were going to take at that pick that was going to alter this team's trajectory. It just wasn't going to happen. So why not take a luxury pick? And yeah, you took him a little higher than he probably should have gone, but you went and got your guy. And I, on one hand, respect what they did, Joe. And I don't disagree with what they did. I think a lot of people, looking back, especially if the minute Kirk Cousins gets injured, if he does, or even if he comes up limping, it's going to look like a brilliant move, Joe, because you've got a quarterback that's ready to go. And I know he has an injury history himself, but you've got a guy that's been in big games and he's run a really good offense before. He should be ready to go. I don't know.
You've got the experience. You've got the arm talent. I mean, he is semi-mobile. He's not completely dead with his legs. But here's the thing. I mean, you got Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. Well, McCarthy went after Penix. No, he did not.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Oh, he did?
McCarthy
Okay,
did.
so when you're looking at those, you get a super project out of McCarthy, which, I mean, they're saying Sam Darnold's going to start over him, so that tells you all you need to know at this point. And you have Bo Nix, who I like Bo Nix, but, I mean, what has he done anything that's better than Michael Penix? So, I love the move. Hindsight being foresight, it was solid.
It was just shocking at the time because they signed Kirk Cousins. I don't think it was that dumb. Okay, let's get on to the fantasy side. Who hasn't talked about the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix thing at this point? So Kirk Cousins going as QB 18, 147 overall. That's after Baker Mayfield. For you, those of you keeping track at home, that is not a starting quarterback in a 1 QB league. This is Joe's bread and butter, by the way. This is the guy that he's going to probably go after because of how cheap he is, and he is on an offense that should produce a lot of fantasy points. But if you want a cheap quarterback, you can't really go wrong with Kirk Cousins. If you take somebody that you're not sure of, he's not a bad option to have sitting on your bench. So if you believe in Kirk, you're basically getting him for a very discounted price. Running backs, we got Bijan Robinson going as RB2, number 7 overall. I completely agree with it. They're finally going to use him appropriately. Arthur Smith could not figure it out, I guess, with this with this running back. But when you have a special once-in-a-lifetime quarterback or running back on your team, probably should use him a little bit more than just not at all using him. So going into this season, I think we're going to use our talented players in ways that would, make them better. So Bijan, I have no problem with at all. I am interested what kind of offense this is going to be, because although Bijan is good at catching passes out of the backfield, is this going to be a pass-happy team with Kirk? Is he going to be handing it off a lot? We haven't really seen that out of Kirk. He's usually one of those guys that throws it 40, 50 times a game. So can he afford to do that? I don't know. That's a whole other can of worms for this team. Tyler Algier is going as RB50, 156 overall. He's going that's a premium handcuff price with basically what you're doing. You really don't, if you have Bijan, you might as well grab him because the workload is extreme if anything was to happen to Bijan. And last season, he was not as good as Bijan, because I think when we saw Bijan actually used correctly, he was way better than Tyler Algier. But we did see some good fill-in spots, and there's still a flash of a good running back there. In Dynasty, I would be after him like nobody's business, because whenever he does eventually get off this team, I think he's going to demand and fetch a high price on another team to be their starting running back, and I don't think anybody's going to think twice about it. On to the wide receivers. Drake London, wide receiver 10, 14 overall. For a Kirk Cousins-led wide receiver, that's probably the cheapest one you're ever going to get, because we've had Justin Jefferson for the last few years, and then Diggs was before that. Like he's always produced a good wide receiver, and Drake London's going to be the latest example of that. As far as past that, though, wide receiver 2 on this team is Darnell Mooney, going at wide receiver 69, 149 overall. Seems really cheap. I mean, what he did with Jordan Addison when Justin Jefferson was on the field and Hawkinson was on the field, still was serviceable. And I think Mooney is kind of a cheap buy now. If you listen to our Buy Low podcast last offseason and you bought him and you were cursing our name because it didn't come to fruition, this year it might actually work if you're still holding. I think we may have been right, just in the wrong year. So if you have Mooney, you might actually be able to cash in and use him as a flex play for a lot of these weeks. You also got Rondale Moore on this team. He's basically free. He's wide receiver 94. It doesn't really matter. I am interested to see what they use him for in the gadget game. They did trade for him, so that is interesting. It'd be different if they just signed him off the street, but to trade for him means they might actually have a plan. So my biggest fear that this means he's going to be taking carries away from Bijan. That's worst case scenario. Best case, he's a gadget player that might factor in to some of the like dump off runs and just kind of open the field up a little bit. Then we got the man of the hour, Kyle Pitts, tight end 6, 60 overall. We're finally here. Everybody who has been waiting and thinking that we were never going to get to paradise as we wandered through the desert, we're finally here. And you're finally going to get the water and the money and everything that you've ever wanted, you're going to finally get now, because we have a quarterback for Kyle Pitts and a quarterback that knows how to use a tight end and make them very relevant. So, Joe, the Falcons could be good on offense this year. What are your thoughts?
Oh, you nailed it. The Falcons, I think, are going to be awesome on offense. Obviously, Kirk's got to be healthy, but I love your absolute take. The Darnell Mooney. The thing with Darnell Mooney is Darnell Mooney was always open. If you go back and watch the Bears games for the past 3 years, the man is open on every single play. And for whatever reason, Justin Fields could not get him the ball the way he needed to. He's not a number 1 at all. We've seen that, but now he's the number 2. Probably the number 3 in this offense with Pitts added in there. It's the perfect position for Mooney. He's an absolute value at his price now. I love this team. When Raheem Morris came out and said, we got Bijan on the team, we're going to give the ball to Bijan, it was the sky is opening up, the rainbow over the mountains, the creeks. There's a big elk drinking out of that stream. I was so happy to hear that. So, no, I'm all in on this offense this year.
No, I think they're going to be good. And the good thing is, if you take Darnell Mooney and if I need to further back up the evidence, the people behind him, we're talking Kadarius Hodge, Casey Washington, which was a 6th-round wide receiver this year, Ray McLeod, and then a bunch of people that probably aren't going to make the roster. Now, there is always the chance, Joe, that they go out and sign a wide receiver that's on the market right now still. I mean, just to name one, I know like Michael Thomas is still out goofing around. Who even knows if he's going to play football again? He might be bored or whatever he's been doing these last 5 years. But like, there's still an opportunity maybe to bring somebody in to like further bolster this. And then obviously cuts might also have an effect here. But if roster stays deadlocked like it is right now, Darnell Mooney is a very good buy. And to get him for basically free in the 14th round, it's kind of wild. Like, it's kind of crazy that we're in that situation. But I think people just haven't fully caught up to like, oh, Kirk Cousins. Oh, that's Cousins that's there. Oh, yeah. Because I think people are still going to be buying Minnesota like, oh, yeah, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Hawkinson. Yeah. I love these guys. I've had these guys on my team for years. And it's like, but they now have Sam Darnold thrown to them. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a little different. And, maybe too late by that point. As far as the defense goes, I like a lot of these guys. I think we need to see a little bit this year. We do have a defensive-minded head coach in there who's coming in from the Rams, so I do like that. I do like Jesse Bates. I like the Lorenzo Carter signing, even though I think Braylon Trice, who they drafted coming in from Washington, might have a chance to get in there and get a few sacks as a freshman. As a rookie. We also have Troy Anderson and the Nate Landman thing. I'll let you speak to that, Joe, because I know you've had that conundrum for a while. I also like Caden Ellis and Arnold Ebic. I don't even know how to say his last name. Arnold E.
Ebiketie.
There you go. Thank you. Is there anybody else on this defense that you were looking at?
No, I still believe in Richie Grant. I'm a big Richie Grant truther.
Okay.
I think he'll make some noise this year. So I don't mind drafting him late. He's essentially free right now. The Troy Anderson, Nate Landman thing, I am just as confused as you are about this. I think you got Caden Ellis there, and I really like Caden Ellis. He's one of my favorite value linebackers right now. So go get you some Caden Ellis. But I think, you have your presence there where it's needed. Get Troy Anderson out there and see what that athletic freak of nature can do for this team. Because we know Nate Landman is a solid linebacker. We know he's there. We know he's fine. He's the backup. And you got Troy Anderson, who could just be absolutely phenomenal. If we get a fully healthy season out of him, great things could happen. So don't give up on Troy Anderson just yet. But Caden Ellis is my like I said, one of my favorites. And then we love some Jesse Bates here.
That's fair. No, I like the Falcons this year. It's kind of hinging on the Kirk Cousins injury situation, but I don't think Michael Penix, I'm not saying he's Kirk Cousins. I just don't think that the fall off is as dramatic as a lot of people are thinking it might be. So just relax, everyone out there. Relax. This team, I think, is
L-A.
Yeah, for real. I think this team might be actually built to compete. So let's just let him do it, right? Like, let's just see what happens. All right, the Falcons over-under is 9.5, Joe.
Okay, so they have the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Panthers, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers again, the Cowboys, the Saints, the Broncos, another Week 12 bye, and then they go to the Chargers, the Vikings, the Raiders, the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers.
I'm not going to lie, that first half is not easy. Like, there's some good teams in there, but
it's not. The back half of that is just trash, though. So
yeah, so you're really banking on if they can weather the storm through the first half, then they can just glide to the finish line. I think they can do it. 10-7. That's not crazy for this team. If they were 11-6, that wouldn't be crazy, especially with this weak division. If they can actually put a stranglehold on it, like, yeah, I'm going over.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in this. I'm going over as well.
That's fair. I do only think we're having one playoff team from this division this year. I think the other divisions have some really good teams. And like the NFC North, that could be a 3 playoff team situation, which we'll get to that when we talk about them. NFC East is probably good for 2.
NFC West could have 3.
And the NFC, exactly. The NFC West could have 3. And then you don't even know who those 3 are going to be because Arizona is going to be good this year. They're not going to be trash. So I don't really – that's why I was pretty comfortable giving some like 2 unders in this and not really thinking much about it because the other NFC teams are good. So like I know that by the way that all this works is that there's not enough wins to go around for everyone. So people are going to have to lose. And I think that 2 in this division aren't going to happen. And then I love Baker Mayfield. I think they get to like 8 wins, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think they're going to be 8-9, and they're going to be just on the outside of that 7th spot, personally.
Yeah. No, I could absolutely see that playing out. I think it's Falcons or bust for this.
Yeah, now Kirk Cousins, we're knocking on wood. Kirk Cousins breaks his leg week 1. Okay, let's throw everything in the air and we'll just see what happens because that's the only way that this is going to work. Like, we don't have an Arthur Smith that's going to intentionally tank the Falcons. Like, we don't have that this year. So they should have a solid path. But I don't know. We'll see. This is what makes this interesting. And I wanted to do this division, kind of get it out of the way because I'm more excited about the other 3 NFC divisions.
Yes. NFC South got there's some value in this division. No one's really that high on any of these guys except for Olave for some reason. And London's kind of getting to the part where I'm like, I love Drake London, but come on, guys. We're getting a little bit up there. I mean, I thought honestly, I had him.
It's just because of Kirk. Like, that's because he's always had supported a wide receiver 1 that I actually finished as a wide receiver 1. That's it. Like, there's no other evidence that Drake London can do it. We haven't seen it. And it's just basically like, well, Kirk's done it so many years in a row, right? Like, he's got to do it again. And that's really what we're living on here.
Yeah, I remember when we did our rankings, I think I had Drake London at 14, which is exactly where he's going right now. And
yeah,
there are people that are really touting first round for Drake London. And I mean, guys, if you want to do it, it could pay off wonders. You have bigger cojones than I.
Only way I would do it, Joe, is it at the first, second round switch. Like, I would take 2 wide receivers back to back. London would be one of those 2. That's the only way he would sneak into the first, and I'd probably take him in the second just so his name wasn't in the first. But that's probably the only way I'm taking him personally. But I don't know. There's high upside.
I think you're right. Like I don't know, Wilson London stack or
Yeah.
Something along those lines would be really solid.
Man, what a deadly duo that would be, because they're both hinging on 35-year-old plus quarterbacks to make their value go. Like
that's
that
cojones. Both coming back from Achilles tears.
Yeah, but if you're thinking like lightning can't strike in the same place twice, like you've got it. Like what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some good value here. All right. That's the NFC South. We are going to talk tentatively about the NFC East next week. We'll see if Josh cares enough to join us. But that being said, Joe, get us out of here.
Good night.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.